Well, hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for today's version of the Lives and Lessons Lived of 100 Christians. Today, we're doing an author who actually wrote probably one of my favorite books. All right, we're doing A.W. Tozer. In a real brief phrase, knowing God intimately. Tozer emphasized the importance of a personal relationship with God over mere religious duties. Unfortunately, a lot of people think of church as duty and not relationship. His writing encouraged believers to seek an intimate, authentic connection with God, suggesting that understanding his nature, his characteristics, his attributes, is a key to a vibrant spiritual life. Aidan Wilson Tozer, everybody just calls him AW, but Aidan Wilson Tozer, 1897 through 1963, was an American pastor, author, and Christian, best known for his deep spiritual insights and emphasis on pursuing, again, an intimate relationship with God. Born in poverty in Pennsylvania, I don't know where, Tozer was largely self-educated but became a prolific writer and influential voice in the 20th century evangelical Christianity. As a pastor in the Christian and Missionary Alliance, that's the denomination, he served primarily at Southside Alliance Church in Chicago for over 30 years. His most famous works include The Pursuit of God, that's a big one, and The Knowledge of the Holy, which is one of my favorite books, which continue to inspire readers with their focus on God's transcendence, holiness, and the need for personal devotion. His teachings emphasize a life of worship, humility, and surrender, a word we don't always appreciate, surrender to God, often challenging the complacency of modern Christianity. He was critical of shallow faith and cultural Christianity, urging believers to seek a deeper, transformative encounter with God. His writings blend theological depth with practical application, rooted in his belief that true Christianity demands a radical commitment to knowing and experiencing God. Here's some key lessons that we can learn what he talked about, spoke of, wrote about. First one is this: pursue God above all else, which is easy to say, and I think we all kind of agree to, but much harder to do. Tozer taught that the ultimate purpose of life is to know God intimately. In The Pursuit of God, one of the books, he writes, "The man who has God for his treasure has all things in one." All right, the man, the person who has God as their treasure has all things in one, capital O, one. So the lesson, the takeaway is prioritize a personal daily relationship with God over religious rituals and the worldly distractions. Seek him through prayer, meditating on the scriptures, and coming to scripture with an open heart for transformation. The second one is to embrace God's holiness and his majesty. This is the part that I liked. The Knowledge of the Holy explores God's attributes, his holiness, sovereignty, infinity, I should say. He believed that a low view of God leads to a weak faith. So what's your view of God, high or low? Low view of God is going to have a weak faith. So the takeaway: cultivate awe and reverence for God's greatness. Understanding his character deepens worship and aligns our lives with his will. He talked about living simply and fully surrendered. Tozer lived modestly, often giving away much of his income and avoiding materialism. He saw surrender as essential to spiritual growth, urging believers to relinquish self-centeredness. So the takeaway: not just living simply, but to let go of pride, ambition, and attachment to worldly things. Embrace humility and trust God's provision and guidance. Another one is to challenge superficial faith. Kind of touched on it. Tozer was critical of churches that prioritize entertainment or comfort over spiritual depth. He called for an authentic faith that transformed lives. And again, the takeaway for us: examine your faith for authenticity. Avoid settling for routine religion. Instead, pursue a vibrant and obedient walk with God. Next one you could say is cultivate a life of prayer and worship. For Tozer, worship was not confined to church services, but was a lifestyle of constant communion with God. He believed prayer and worship reorient the heart toward eternity. So again, the lesson for us, make prayer and worship central to your daily life. Create space for silence and reflection to hear his voice. So we talked about that quite a bit. Worship is a mindset, not just this event. Create space for silence and give him space to speak. Value of the spiritual disciplines. Tozer emphasized disciplines like solitude, fasting, and the studying of Scripture to grow closer to God. He saw these as tools to strip away distractions and to focus on the divine. So again, the takeaway, incorporate spiritual disciplines into your routine to foster spiritual maturity and guard against worldly influences. It's so easy to fall for all those things. And then the last one is to speak truth boldly. Tozer fearlessly critiqued cultural trends and spiritual laziness, even when it made him unpopular. His commitment to truth over approval inspired many. Again, the lesson for us, stand firm in our convictions, even when we're countercultural. Speak and live truth with both courage and love. So his lasting impact, Tozer's writings remain timeless because they address universal spiritual needs. His focus on God's transcendence and the call to discipleship challenges believers to move beyond a superficial faith. His life, I should say, marked by simplicity, devotion, and a relentless pursuit of God, offers a model for all of us seeking authenticity again in a world that's full of distractions. Thank you so much. Tozer wrote, the most important thing about you is what you think about God. And I think that's true. The most important thing about you is not what you say or do. It's what you think about God, because that becomes the filter for everything else. All right. Thanks so much. Take care. God bless. Bye.